Army.
U.S. Army.
For the right and to build the nation's might, and the Army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the Army goes rolling along. For it's high, high, hey, and the Army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along. Next is Coast Guard. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in Thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, high shall our purpose be. Semper Virtus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, high Coast Guard we are for you. Next is the Marines. From the halls of Montezuma to the shore
U.S. Marine.
we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we'll fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine. Air Force. Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come, zooming to meet our thunder. Atom boys, give it a gun. Down we dive, scouting our flame from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flame. Nothing can stop the U.S. Air Force. Next is the Navy. Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day, 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 day. Through our last night on shore, drink to the floor. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage.
Let's have a nice hand for Paulette Westfall and the Burbank Community Band. Beautiful. And I want to ask all veterans who are here today and all active duty personnel to please stand and be recognized. Thanks to all of you who are still serving our country, and thanks to all of you that have served our country. God bless each and every one of you. Before I move on, I'd like to comment on how beautiful the Rose Garden looks today. That's thanks to our wonderful Parks Department. They work hard here every Veterans Day and Memorial Day to make sure that this stands tall. And they do it out of respect and love for our veterans and their families. And I also want to thank City Council and the City Manager for all their support of our Veterans Committee activities. And I also want to thank the staff of the Park and Recreation Department, because without them, we couldn't do this. They treat us wonderfully. They do a great job. And I'd like to mention their names if I could, please. Judy Wilkie, Chris Smith, Victoria Cusimano, Paul Pallone, and Monica Villaseñor. Good morning and welcome. My name is Mickey DiPaolo, and once again it is my honor to be here today to welcome you to the City of Burbank and the Veterans Committee Memorial Day Ceremony for 2014. As always, we have a wonderful ceremony planned for today, highlighted by the Ceremony of the Rose, where we have some wonderful Boy Scouts here today to place roses at each memorial as we read the names that are listed on our memorials. Today I want to remember a couple of individuals. First of all, Mr. Freddie Baldino, who passed away in December. He came to our Veterans Day ceremony and passed away in December. Freddie never missed our ceremonies, and his family did pay the price in Vietnam. His nephew lost his life during Vietnam. And also I remember Mr. Ham Lloyd, longtime teacher and coach and a proud World War II veteran. Ham never missed our ceremonies either. So God bless those two gentlemen. I also want to remember Frank and Roberta Bullock, who were so dear to our committee, and without them our memorials would not be here today. They lost their son Brian, who I grew up with, during the Vietnam War. So God bless Frank and Roberta Bullock. We know they're in heaven, and I hope they're looking at our ceremony today. And there's one lady here today. Her name is Ardeen Blackstone. And her husband, First Lieutenant James Elliott, Korean War, is still listed as MIA. Miss Blackstone, God bless you and thank you for being here today. You know, I read an article in the LA Times yesterday. According to the article, and I quote, America's first widespread celebration of the occasion, it was called Decoration Day, came 3 years after the end of the Civil War, when former Union General John Logan sought to broaden earlier efforts into a national campaign to decorate the graves of the war dead. I also read a very startling statistic. At least 620,000 died of wounds and disease during the 4-year Civil War. That accounts for nearly half of the nation's military deaths from all wars combined. It claimed 2.5% of the population. And at that rate was extrapolated, excuse my stumbling over that word, to current times would amount to more than 6 million war dead. That's a pretty sobering statistic. And today, Memorial Day ceremonies are being conducted all over the nation. I want to thank you, the Burbank community, for being out here each and every Memorial Day and Veterans Day to support our veterans and their families. And to people that are attending our ceremony for the first time, welcome, and we hope to see you again in the future. And now I'd like to introduce the United States Army Color Guard for the presentation of colors, to be followed by the national anthem from Miss Bobby Cranston and an invocation from Dr. Jerry A. Jones.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
If you would please remain standing for the invocation. Would you bow your heads and your hearts with me as I lead us in prayer? Great God Almighty, giver of life and the preserver of freedom for all that will dare to love it, cherish it, and defend it. It is in your name that I pray today. I ask that your blessing will rest mightily upon this event as the citizens of Burbank, a proud city that has given many of her citizens to the cause of freedom, gather here today as these monuments here present do attest. Today we celebrate not the deaths of well over 1 million Americans who have died in all of the wars we have fought, but their lives and their commitment to freedom, a commitment that did ultimately take their life. We celebrate the deep sense of commitment to God, to country, and to freedom that each displayed in volunteering, as most have, for the principles that have always made America the great country that she is. We celebrate their valor, and we humbly acknowledge that because of their sacrifice, we have been allowed to remain free. As a proud citizen of this city for more than 50 years, and one dedicated to making this city a better and safer place for us all, I would ask that you, O Lord, continue to bless us with peace, safety, and a never-dying sense of pride for who we are, and a greater sense of gratitude for your guidance and protection. And now, I commit what is to follow in this Memorial Day observance to your direction and benediction. As I do, may we all implore you to look over and protect the young men and women who at this very hour are proudly wearing the uniform of their chosen branch of service, always ready to defend to the death, if need be, our right to be free. Amen.
Hello there. No one can give an invocation like you. God bless you, so for being here. Now, those of you, please be seated. I'm one of these guys that you know and don't even know you know. I'm the last guy alive in the Yogi Bear show. If you remember a little duck named Yacky Doodle, he said it doesn't have old mama. Well, I'm the guy that did the voice. Chopper said, Yacky, now that you're safe, tell me, where's your mama? And he always answered, I do have your mama. What do you mean, my mama? Did that 51 years ago. So thankful. Bless your heart. Psychic income never appears on an income tax report. It's in the heart. And recognition for an entertainer is the greatest thing there is. Now, I'm so thankful to be here. I'll be 91 September the 23rd. And I was in Patton's 3rd Army Combat Engineers, attached to the group that liberated Buchenwald concentration camp. I want to bring you a message now from the very heart of Old Glory. Please look at this old friend. Patriotism isn't like it used to be, but we'll renew it right now. I am the flag of the United States of America, conceived in the dreams of liberty and the hopes of freedom. I was designed by the hands of Betsy Ross, and a sewing basket was my cradle. Though I was never an orphan, I was adopted by the Continental Congress in 1777 and proclaimed the national emblem of a nation newly born on this continent, fighting valiantly for survival and destined to bring to all mankind a new concept in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I rode with Ethan Allen, the Green Mountain Boys, at the Battle of Fort Bennington. I was flown above the decks of Old Ironsides and the mass of Yankee clippers. I blazed the trail with Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. I led the settlers coming west and crossed Death Valley in a covered wagon. Once I fell to the ground at Custer's last stand at the Little Bighorn. There were no living hands left to pick me up. But I galloped up the slopes of San Juan Hill with Colonel Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders in the United States Cavalry. I was carried through the halls of Montezuma onto the shores of Tripoli by the United States Marine Corps. I stayed with the boys till it was over there. On the battlefields of the Marne, Chateau Thierry, St. Mihiel in the Argonne Forest, I saw many of the youth and manhood of our nation fall and lie still in death. They'd given their last full measure of blood. The war was over for them forever, but I kept my lonely vigil over their graves and stayed to watch the poppies grow amid the crosses, row on row, in Flanders Field. I was raised by 6 brave Marines and sailors during the hell of Iwo Jima in the final hours of World War II. Haven't changed much in almost 237 years. I still have Marines with 13 stripes, but as each state came the Union, a new star was proudly added to the constellation of my blue field. Started with 13, now there are 50. I draped the caskets of our nation's heroes, and borne to their last resting place the bodies of presidents, generals, admirals, humble privates, and the unknown soldier. Wherever free men gather, wherever there's justice, equality, faith, hope, charity, truth, and brotherly love, there too am I. When you stand with your hand over your heart and recite the Pledge of Allegiance to me, don't merely mouth the words, but think of what they mean to you and mean what you say. And when you come to the phrase, one nation under God, remember it matters not what your religious belief. It only matters that you hold your faith dear, that you practice it daily, and that you preserve it forever. History will never write my obituary, for I am the stars and stripes forever. I'm Old Glory. I'm your flag. I am you. Now will you stand with me? Together let's declare the greatest nation on the face of this earth. As we proudly and loudly say together, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, be seated again, please. Mickey said I could do something. We're going to now honor the men and women for all of our wars. They gave their full measure of blood. Some are still alive, but not here today. And I want to give you a message that each one of them would say if they were here right now. You've given us honor for what we've done, but we want you to live this day for America. And they would say, I will live this day as if it is my last. And what shall I do with this last precious day which remains in my keeping? First, I will seal up its container of life so that not one drop spills itself upon the sand. I will waste not a moment mourning yesterday's misfortunes, yesterday's defeat, yesterday's aches of the heart. For why should I throw good after bad? I will avoid with fury the killers of time. Procrastination I will destroy with action. Doubt I will bury under faith. Fear I will dismember with confidence. Each minute of today will be more fruitful than hours of yesterday. My last must be my best. I will live this way as if it is my last. God bless you and God bless America.
Mr. Jimmy Weldon. Jimmy, you're a true patriot. And thank you from the bottom of our hearts with the city of Burbank, and thank you for your service to our country. You know, before I introduce Miss Pat Walmsley, I want to read off the names of this, the fine Burbank Veterans Committee, my colleagues, who are very wonderful, and they pour their hearts and souls into our ceremonies. Greg Alimo, Rich Bainan, Barbara Bartman, Gary Brick, Marianne Christ, David Christ, Paul Currier, our chaplain, Dr. Jerry Jones, and his dress blues, a young Marine just discharged, new to our committee, Nestor Martinez. Corporal Nestor Martinez. And a very special World War II veteran who came to our ceremony today, and we're so happy to have her, Miss Florence Mast. And our historian on our committee, Mr. Michael McDaniel. And Marine Corps and Army vet, Mr. Paul McKenna Jr. Recently discharged Fireman Stephen Moss, U.S. Navy, new to our committee. And also in uniform today, Mr. Christopher Thomas. A World War II veteran, and she also sent cookies to the soldiers in Vietnam, Miss Doris Vick. And also a wonderful lady, Miss Pat Walmsley. Brad Welker and Chris Welker, they could not be here today, but they are with us in thought. And we hope, was Chris here? Oh, there she is. Hey, Chris Welker, I'm sorry. And last but not least, John Wernstrom. And now this has become a tradition for almost ever since we've been doing these ceremonies for 25 years. To sing God Bless America, our wonderful committee member, Miss Pat Walmsley.
next time you see me, I'll have a new hip. Anyway, I just wanted to say I'm so glad to see so many of you here today to honor those who've given their lives and those in the military and our veterans. And I would like to lift up a get well wish for a friend, a Burbank veteran, Sergeant Kent Nebergall, who is in the VA hospital in Long Beach. And so, not to single him out above everybody else, because y'all are important, but if you think of him, I know he'd appreciate it. And so if you all would join me in singing God Bless America, I bet we could make a little noise in this park. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with corn. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. Once again, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with corn. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Let's have a nice hand for Miss Pat Walmsley. Thank you, Pat. Before I introduce our distinguished speaker, the tables here to my right, the American Legion Post 150 has some literature that I hope you all like to stop by and take a look at before you leave today. And also, there's a veterans group that meets every Wednesday evening at the Burbank Family Service Agency. We have some information on that also, and other things of interest that you might want to pick up on your way out. And I also want to take this time to thank the Canyon Grill at DeBell Golf Course for supporting our Veterans Committee and the preservation of our memorials here. And I also want to thank Brooks and Ann Gardner and the Burbank High Drama Department, which recently put on a play entitled Vietnam 101. It was about the campus unrest in the 60s during the Vietnam War. And the actors there were wonderful, the young actors, very passionate, and they also supported our Veterans Committee to raise funds for the preservation of our memorials here. So I just wanted to thank them also. And if any of them are here today, thanks for being here, and thanks again for your support. And now it is my honor to introduce Captain, excuse me, Captain James Young, United States Army.
Good morning, Burbank. Unfortunately, I'm not as eloquent a speaker as Mr. Weldon, so please bear with me. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting myself and my soldiers as well to help celebrate Memorial Day here in Burbank with you. It's an honor and a privilege to be here this morning to commemorate our fallen soldiers. They represent the strength of our country and what it really means, or the true meaning of sacrifice. I want to take this opportunity to recognize the City of Burbank and the Burbank Veterans Committee, so if you please give them a hand. Thank you for your service to our veterans and to the community as well. I've now served in the military for 10 years. In those 10 years, I've served with countless men and women who always go beyond the call of duty to ensure the preservation of our freedoms. These men and women, they come from all different backgrounds. Some fell on hard times. Some were millionaires, believe it or not. I've known movie stars, investment bankers, a college football quarterback, and farmers as well. So they come from everywhere, literally across America. These men that I served with, they couldn't be any more different than each other. There was, however, one common thread between all these men and women. There's no veteran that makes sacrifices with the intention of being recognized or thanked for what they do. Every man and woman that has served and given their life did so without thoughts of accolades or recognition, but rather with the solemn understanding that their efforts helped save the lives of their brothers and sisters, that their sacrifice helped strengthen the altar of freedom. Unfortunately, I've had the honor of serving with many men who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Today, it's not their passing that I remember. It's their lives that I celebrate. It's coming back from missions with them, talking about their relationships at home, what they're gonna do when they come back home, who they're gonna see. What's common from all these men is that they're not just sitting back for thanks, but rather hoping that their sacrifices will make our lives here back in the States a little bit better. I'd like to ask any service members and veterans who are here to please stand. Thank you so much for answering the call to duty. You've made our armed forces the most respected in the world. I'd also like to ask the family members of any service members here to please stand as well. We know you've lived through difficult times, taking the heavy burden at home. Thank you for what you've done. Today, people throughout the country will gather together to honor, remember, and pay tribute to those who have served our country. Our gathering here is one small way we can honor those who have served and made the ultimate sacrifice. Your presence here today is a testament to that. And with people gathering across all of America to pay tribute to these lost troops and their families, it's a way that we can remember. Let's not think about the final moments that these soldiers spent on the battlefield, but rather the countless memories that we shared before, talking about our relationships, sharing good times, and having that beer while we were on leave. Thank you for attending today. God bless you and your families. God bless our troops, and God bless America.
He looks a little young to be a captain, doesn't he? Thank you, Captain Young. Thank you for your service. And now I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel David J. Worley and the Crescenta Valley High School Air Force Junior ROTC Honor Guard to do the POW MIA table ceremony.
Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the POW MIA table to my right. At this time, we ask that you remain seated yet silent as we conduct the POW MIA ceremony. This ceremony is rich with military tradition as we honor those men and women of our armed forces who, in the defense of the freedoms of our country and that of the free world, are unaccounted for and are classified as prisoners of war or missing in action. We are specifically honoring the sacrifice of hundreds of thousands of Americans held prisoner of war and those still listed as missing in action since the time of the American Revolution. Some died from disease and starvation. Some perished in death marches. Some were tortured, and some were lost, gone forever from their families. All were deprived of their liberties so that you may enjoy yours. At all military functions where meals are served, these heroes are always honored and remembered. This table is set for our prisoners of war and those missing in action from all wars. They are not with us today. The table is round to show that our concern for them is never ending. The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their intentions to respond to their country's call to arms so that their children could remain free. Let us remember the United States Army, honored by Cadet McDermott. Let us remember the United States Marine Corps, honored by Cadet Stepanian. Let us remember the United States Navy, honored by Cadet Lee. Let us remember the United States Air Force, honored by Cadet Yoon. Let us remember the United States Coast Guard, honored by Cadet McDermott. Let us remember the men and women, prisoners of war from all branches of service that are too often forgotten. We must never forget them. The lone candle symbolizes the frailty of a prisoner alone, trying to stand up against his oppressors. The yellow candle and the yellow ribbon on the candle reminds us of those who will not be coming home. The single red rose reminds us of the loved ones and families of our comrades in arms who keep the faith and await their return. The red ribbon on the rose represents the love of our country, which inspired them to answer the nation's call. The black napkins on the table stand for the emptiness these warriors have left in the hearts of their family and friends. A slice of lemon is on the bread plate to remind us of their bitter fate if we do not bring them home. There is salt on the plate, symbolic of the family's tears as they wait and remember. The glass is inverted, reminding us that our distinguished comrades cannot be with us today, maybe tomorrow, if we remember. The faded picture on the table is a reminder they are missed very much and are remembered by their families. The empty tilted chair depicts an unknown face, representing no specific soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, or Coast Guardsman, but all are here with us this morning. The POWMI flag is posted behind me to mourn the fact that many of our comrades will not return to our shores, and to pay tribute to their passing. As we look upon this empty table, do not remember ghosts from the past, but remember our comrades. Remember those whom we depended on in battle. They depend on us to bring them home. Remember our friends. They are the ones we love, who love life and freedom as we do. They will remember what we do. Please honor and remember them.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Worley and the Crescendo Valley High School Air Force Junior ROTC Honor Guard. Thank you so much for that moving ceremony. And now the key part to our program, the Ceremony of the Rose. I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike McDaniel, member, Burbank Veterans Committee. Mr. McDaniel.
What a beautiful day we have again to meet here today to remember those who gave the ultimate sacrifice from our town here, Burbank, California. Memorial Day was first known as Decoration Day, as already has been said. It began after the Civil War to remember the fallen on both sides of the conflict. Communities, such as ours, would gather together each year to place flowers on the graves of those who gave their lives. This tradition of placing flowers on soldiers' graves dates all the way back to Roman times, when the families and loved ones of the Roman soldiers would place flowers on the graves of their lost loved ones. Today, we as a community continue to honor our fallen soldiers from all conflicts each year, decorating these monuments and plaques here containing the names of Burbank's fallen, to assure that their names and their sacrifice will never, ever be forgotten. Today we place a rose on each monument for every name on the plaque as we read aloud their names for all to hear and all to remember. Today, the roses will be placed by a scout troop from Burbank. This troop is the same troop to which our Medal of Honor winner, Larry L. Maxim belonged to and became an Eagle Scout in. We are honored to have them here with us today. As is our tradition, if any member of the audience is related to one of the names being read today, we invite you to come forward when your family member's name is read, and you may place the rose on the monument yourself in their memory. Please follow along in your program as the names are read, and please remember that they're not just printed words, printed names on a page. They are individuals. They had lives, they had dreams, they had hopes, they had relatives, family members, and loved ones who still to this day remember them. We'll now begin our ceremony by reading the World War I names, followed by the World War II names. From World War I, Manuel Chaffino, Harry Leslie Colton, Ray Frederick Enos, and James McLeod. I'd now like to introduce Nestor Martinez to come forward and begin the reading of the World War II names. Nestor?
Robert Alden Frank, Edwin V. Anderson, Herbert E. Anderson Jr., Winston H. Arnold, Lee Barger, Warren A. Barker, Clinton D. Barton, Neville A. Barton Jr., Kenneth Bell, Harold Bettle Jr., James A. Bailly, Warren R. Blakeman, Donald Blakesley, Arthur R. Bode, Rex Bobby, Herman L. Bauer, Louis Brammer, Donald N. Broman, Floyd L. Broman, Richard H. Bunbaugh, Albert B. Byland, H. Campbell, David Carrillo, Delbert Ben Carr, Robert W. Chambers, Glenn E. Chapman, John Morris Chase, Fernando Chavez, John Chauvinek, Charles Christopher, Jack Clark, Alfred W. Cole, Walter Collier, Roy Coniero, Paul G. Cassandier, Norman F. Craig, Claire C. Cross, Wallace Crowder, James G. Davis, Tello DeSantis, C. W. Dickens, Robert A. Dibb, Ronald Dinsmore, John A. Dorgan, Perry L. Dreyer, Warren C. Dunaway, Richard H. Dunbar, Richard E. Dunkelberger, Edwin L. Evinger, A. O. Ellerman, Glenn O. Elliott, Harley A. Ellis, Keith Edwin Ellis, Webb D. Elmaker, N. J. Elrod, Eugene Lloyd Farthing, Robert A. Frank, Leo Fratelli.
I'm Stephen Moss, so I'll continue the names. Raymond O. Fulford, James H. Gamblin, Ruben Garcia, George Jean, Edward G. Jens, Charles A. Geddes, Douglas Lawrence Goff, Raymond Gonzalez, Edwin S. Green, John R. Gugerty, Joseph H. Hackwell, Edward J. Hardarba, C. F. Hagerstorm, Gaylord Grant Hanley, Jack Henry Harder, Patrick Harmon, Alvin Hart, Warren G. Haviland, Archie F. Haviland Jr., Richard Hayward, Lawrence Headley, Ole E. Henriksen, Harold P. Hepburn, George Heron, Robert A. Herzog, Herman H. Hetzel, Howard Hickenlooper, Donald Hinshaw, Norman A. Hollis, Felton E. Horton, Robert W. Howard, Thomas Hunter, Aubrey Huron, Kurt Francis Jennings, Glenn E. Jewett, Arvin E. Johnson, Robert Johnson, Forrest J. Johnston Jr., Wayne A. Jones, Ernest L. Kern, Richard Kimball, William F. Kinsey, William N. Kirkland, Max Kruger, Thomas Lake, Donald A. Landis, and now let's turn it over back to Mike McDonald. Where he's at. Mike McDonald to the podium. What's next? All right, I'll read the names then. James Landsberger, Albert Lemon, Melvin Lieberman, Sam Lieberman, Gordon R. Lofgren, John S. Lambart, Charles S. Lonergan, Harry Long, Lawrence R. Long, Earl Loudon, Wilbur C. Maturin, William F. McChesney, Vernon McElmurray, Jack McHenry, Robert McNish, Eugene Meadow, W.M.A. Messina, George Milburn, William Mantadon, Joe Morris, William J. Morrison, Troy B. Mullenix, Alvin Moosen, Douglas L. Muchler, James William Myers, Norman L. Myers, Wesley N. Myers, Warren F. Nelson, Carl V. Nelson Jr., Harold Nelson, Frank C. O'Donnell, Fred W. Otel, Peter Ogborn, Billy B. Parker, Robert Spencer Patterson, William A. Pelkey, Floyd Penry, Jack R. Paris, John Pilkington, John Frederick Bluth, J. A. Pritchard Jr., James G. Purdy, Bartholomew Quinte, Glenn Rainey, Douglas Richards, Joseph D. Risdorn, and Gerald Roberts. Now I'd like to turn over to John Wernstrom to read the rest of the names.
Virgil Robinson, B.C. Robinson, Fred C. Rowland, William A. Rutledge, John Samorian, Quentin Sondal, Daniel Sonder, Christopher Schaefer, George R. Schaffer, Roy Clifford Shear, Robert E. Schmidt, C. E. Schemetke, Robert L. Shrug, Paul Schwartz, W. E. Seagren, Arthur B. Sherman, J. J. Signorelli, Nathan Silver, Jess Edward Simpson, Edwin Slocum, Roger A. Smith, Elmer Snodgrass, William Alexander Snyder, Dudley M. Steele Jr., Sam Stamolo Jr., Clark D. Stone, Myron K. Strickland, William Stripe, August W. Solflo, Joseph M. Sundin, Richard Sussman, Ray Swenson, Philip B. Taylor Jr., Walter Merrill Taylor, William E. Taylor, Charles R. Teal, Robert DeGart, Milton A. Tolman, Charles Franklin Townsend, Nelson Troop, Richard Tull. Don Van Alta, Walter Vernon, Lloyd Wade, Bernard P. Walmsley, William Taylor Wattenberger, Ray Weber, Albert O. Wedden, Robert P. Westbrook, Arthur White, Robert V. Vickers, Daniel L. Wickersham, Jack Wiles, Johnson B. Wiles Jr., Richard D. Williams, Robert K. Wilson, Ronald H. Wingate, Albert A. Wyatt, William H. York, John T. Zimmerman. Chris Thomas will now do the Korean.
Also from our Veterans Committee and a Korean War veteran, Mr. Chris Thomas.
William J. Barnes, Donald S. Bills Jr., Bobby S. Box, Edward L. Conyers, Max L. DeRosset, David M. Ellis, James Homer Elliott, Foster L. Delmar, Edwin Guerin, Curtis A. Hatfield, William C. Caron, George R. Klein, William J. Ledger Jr., Burton H. Levinson, Michael LaMagna, Arnold Nally, Larry Shiner, John D. Varney, Robert V. Wilson. To present the names of the Vietnam fallen, City Councilman Gary Brick.
Jerry Joe Allen, Robert Annis, James M. Ball, Stephen P. Barnett, Christopher P. Battaglia, Arthur Skip E. Bedell, James A. Bean, my brother, Private First Class William H. Brick III, 23 August 68, Brian E. Bullock, Felix A. Calderon, Robert J. Campbell, Donald E. Close, Michael J. Corrigan, Thomas B. Daly, John A. DeRue, Frank A. DeFiglia, Douglas Despensiero, Reese C. Elia Jr., Alan L. Elmore, Daniel P. Alas, Terry M. Enriquez, James H. Flickinger, Stephen D. Francis, John A. Jarrow, Wayne E. Halstead, Stephen P. Hansen, and Norbert P. Hollisball. And I'll ask Greg Alamo to read the second half of the Vietnam. Thank you.
Robert Hoole, Scott Eagledon, Douglas R. Johnson, George F. Kiefer, Stephen M. Knopfel, James W. Kerr, Ronald R. King, Howard L. Klensky, Edward L. Krausman, Edward R. Letourneau, Vaughn M. Liebernet, Larry Leonard Maxim, Medal of Honor, Gary T. McLean, Michael McKeever, David Moreland, Donald L. Morrison, Andrew J. Pine Jr., Stephen D. Pleasant, William C. Proctor Jr., Paul Quiglieri, Robert W. Robinson, David Salisbury, Charles P. Searles, Sal Silva, Larry Steffen, Gutner R. Tunoz, Kenneth J. Webb, Ray Leonard Willman, Jack P. Wilson Jr. I'd like to call up Nestor Martinez to read the names for the Global War on Terrorism.
For the Global War on Terrorism, David J. Hart, Afghanistan.
In Iraq, Cody Phelps.
Thanks to our Boy Scout troops and Cub Scout troops for their participation today, along with their leaders. And thanks to Veterans Committee member Paul McKenna and Eagle Scout himself for his assistance. And now for, I think, a very appropriate song today to sing Forever Young, Miss Bobby Cranston, accompanied by her husband Bryce on the guitar.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others and let others do for you. May you build a ladder to the stars and climb on every rung. May you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young. May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth and see the light surrounding you. May you always be courageous, stand upright and be strong. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. May your heart always be joyful. May your hands always be full. May you have a strong foundation when the winds of change chill. May your heart always be joyful. May your song always be sung. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young.
Bobby and Bryce Cranston, ladies and gentlemen, thank you both so very much. That was beautiful. And now it is my honor to introduce Honorable Mayor of the City of Burbank, Dr. David Gordon.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the City Council of Burbank, I want to thank you all for attending today's Memorial Day ceremony. As mayor, I am honored and humbled to be here today to honor those and remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice and gave their lives for our country. Today is a day and a time for reflections, word, music, song, most of all, to remember our fallen heroes. Who are those fallen heroes? They're our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters, our mothers and fathers. When the words of President Lincoln 150 years ago in the Battle of Gettysburg, are those who willingly gave their last full measure of devotion to their country. I'd like to particularly acknowledge the families who lost loved ones for their strength and courage during such difficult times. I want to give special thanks to those who supported and participated in today's ceremony. In particular, I'd like to present a certificate to Captain James Yoon, United States Army, for his participation today. And I'd also like to thank representatives of the Cusimano family and the Cusimano Real Estate Group for allowing us to have our flyover this morning. So once again, I'd like to thank you for coming to today's ceremony, May God bless you all, and God bless the United States, and I'm going to invite Captain Yoon. Please come forward. I too would like to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of Burbank's Veterans Committee. At this time, I'd like to ask all the members of the Veterans Committee to please stand, and let's really give them a round of applause of acknowledgement. Thank you, members, for the excellent work that you do. Committee never for a moment forgets the service of those who've sacrificed for our country and the freedoms that we're blessed with. Joining us today, we have some people I'd like to acknowledge and recognize. My colleagues on the council here, Vice Mayor Bob Frutos, Councilmember Gary Brick, Councilmember Jess Talamantes, Councilmember Gabe Letty was unable to join us. We also have some officials here. We'd like to recognize our city manager, Mark Scott. Will you please stand and be recognized, Mr. Scott? We have some representatives from our city departments. Battalion Chief Jeff Howe is here. Jeff? Thank you. And to all the members of the fire department for helping us put this on today. We have our Park Recreation and Community Service Director, Judy Wilkie. Thank you, Judy. And we have members of the Park Recreation and Community Services Board, Vice Chair Barry Gussow, and of course, Mickey DiPaolo, Secretary, is here. We're also very fortunate to have joining us from the United States Congress, Congressman Adam Schiff. Congressman Schiff. The 28th District, and representing California's 30th District, Brad Sherman can't be here, but his representatives here, Matthew Valasila. And we have California State Assemblyman Mike Gatto. Mike. I'm going to invite the representatives here to say a few words to us. So, Congressman Schiff, would you please join me at the podium?
Mr. Mayor and council members, I want to join you in thanking the Burbank Veterans Committee and Mickey DiPaolo for such a fabulous job this year and every year. It's a tremendous honor to join you and remember those who lost their lives serving this country. Just a couple weeks ago, I had another opportunity to visit our troops in Afghanistan, to be briefed by General Dunford about the mission there. But the highlight is always having a chance to break bread with our troops, to have a chance to thank them for their service, to thank their entire families. And I always take that opportunity to ask them how their families are doing back home, because as all of you know, it's really a family commitment when someone is deployed. And I want to tell you about just one of the wonderful and dedicated young people I met while I was there, a young petty officer who's in the reserves and works for the state of California up in Sacramento. She has 3 young children, and she said that when she was called up, it would mean a hardship for her family. In particular, her 5-year-old son found it very difficult when she would be deployed. And one day before her deployment, she went into her closet and found that all of her shoes had been glued together. This was her 5-year-old's way of trying to keep her home. And when she asked her husband, how could you let our son glue all of my shoes together, his answer was, "I don't want you to go either." But she said, I'm really proud to go. I'm really grateful to have this chance to serve. It's an honor to serve. And she was really illustrative of just the caliber of people that we have serving this country. To be willing to be away from her family for long periods of time, to be at risk, to be not only willing to serve, but grateful for the opportunity to serve. I wanted to just bring your attention this year to a particular group of sailors who lost their lives during Vietnam. They served aboard a ship called the Frankie Evans. And I've come to know the family of these 74 sailors over the years through one of my constituents who lost his father on the Frankie Evans when he was just a child. He never really had an opportunity to get to know his father. The Frankie Evans was providing artillery support for the mission in Vietnam when it was called away for an exercise in the South China Sea. During that exercise, tragically, the Frankie Evans collided with an Australian carrier and was cut in half. Within seconds, 74 sailors lost their lives. Some years later, when the Vietnam War Memorial was built in Washington, many of the families of the Frankie Evans sailors went to the wall to see the names of their loved ones inscribed. And you can imagine their sorrow when they found that their names were not included. You see, the Frankie Evans had sailed past that artificial line in the water that demarcates where the combat zone begins and ends. So they were outside of the zone, which meant they were outside of inclusion on the memorial. Well, ever since, the families have been trying to have their loved ones included in the memorial. Originally, when this was raised with me, I went to see then Secretary of Defense Robert Gates and pleaded with him to include the names on the wall. The Secretary declined. So when his term was over, I went to see the next Secretary, Secretary Leon Panetta. And I made the case, and Secretary Panetta declined. So we now have a new secretary. And as my father likes to say, what's the point of being a Schiff if you can't be stubborn? So I went to see Secretary Hagel, this time armed with the support of now Secretary of the Navy Mabus, to make the case. And Secretary Hagel, the first Vietnam veteran to serve as Defense Secretary, is considering the matter as we speak. So if you can send a thought and a prayer out to Secretary Hagel, we're hoping that next year for this memorial we'll have positive news to share with those families. I do want to tell you that last week we had a positive move on this. I offered an amendment to the annual defense bill, which calls on the Secretary to add these names to the memorial. And I'm pleased to tell you, on a very strong and a completely bipartisan vote, the House of Representatives voted to include those names on the wall. So I wanted to make a particular acknowledgement to those families of those sailors, and I hope you'll keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And thank you once again for an absolutely beautiful ceremony. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you, Congressman Schiff. It's always a pleasure to be at events with you. And I'd like to now invite to speak Assemblyman of the 43rd District, Mike Gatto. Please come up, Mike.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for being here to mark this most sacred of holidays. You know, Memorial Day has always been special to me, and it's not just because I come from a family where so many served. I think the reason why Memorial Day is special to me is the same reason why it's special to you. It's different from other holidays. This is not a day where we engage in consumerism, we don't exchange gifts, we don't watch fireworks. Instead, all we do is come together as a community in places like this to mark the contributions of those who gave their lives. Many of us today will make additional trips to places of worship, to grave sites, to mourn those in our families who served but who are no longer with us. The purity of our thoughts and of our prayers on a day like this is important, because I think when we reflect, it makes all of us here realize how lucky we are to be alive. Memorial Day is more than a day off work. It's more than a barbecue. It's more than a trip to the beach. All those things are fine to do. They are, and we all enjoy spending time with our loved ones on a day off. But what's most important, and I know all of you here know that because you're here, is to make sure that we pause and we give our thanks that we live in a land where so many patriots found our national ideals to be worth fighting for and worth dying for. And I think everybody here shares that sentiment. I want to quickly introduce a new staff member I have. Her name is Alexis Miller. She's in the front row here. Alexis. She is the deputy in my office who handles military, veterans, and related affairs. I think you'll find real quickly, like I have, that she understands these issues real well. Her father is on active duty in the Middle East. And trust me, when you call her, if you have any issue that matters to you on these topics, she will work really hard to solve it, as will I. So if there's anything we can ever do, please just call on us. You all know paying proper respect to those who gave their lives is an ongoing task. It's not something we do just once a year. Good news out of Sacramento can be quite rare, but I'm happy to report this year a couple big milestones. Since Fort Ord got removed out of our fort system in Northern California, there's been a really strong movement afoot to put a veteran cemetery on the more beautiful plots of land there. Now, times are tough everywhere. We all know that. The federal government, with the leadership of great people we have in Washington, like Adam Schiff, Congressman Sherman, they appropriated a substantial sum for this Fort Ord cemetery, but it still wasn't enough. Private foundations came forward, like so many of us do. They gave and gave and gave, but it still wasn't enough. And I thought that the state of California, although we certainly don't have lots of money and we're always careful with taxpayer funds, that this was something that was appropriate for us to contribute to. And I'm chairman of the Appropriations Committee. One of the things we get to do is we get to set state spending on certain issues. And last year, my committee amended a Senate Bill 232, to appropriate over $1 million to the Fort Ord Cemetery Fund. And it now looks like it's going to happen. And I hope that our fallen will have a much-deserved final resting place in California, which is appropriate because, so many folks did their basic training at Fort Ord so many years ago. Now, not to be outdone, we probably need a veteran cemetery in Southern California as well. And there are plans in the works to put a new one somewhere in Orange County. We haven't decided yet, but it's got to be close to all these metropolitan areas here because there's so many folks who serve with distinction. And I'm proud to report that the initial bill to fund the effort passed my committee last week by a vote of 17-0. And so I think we're well on our way to making sure that our servicemen and women who depart this earth have an appropriate final resting place in California. Thank you. We've been blessed by some very eloquent reverends. Jerry Jones, obviously, every year. There was a reverend named Aaron Kilborn who said that the dead soldier's silence in this country is what sings our national anthem. It's a reminder that their silence, their absence, is really what powers our country. It's what makes our way of life possible. We, my friends, need not be silent. We are still blessed with the gift of life. We can speak for them. We can make sure that we lead our lives every day in a way that makes them proud, and that we make sure that we honor each and every one of them. Thank you.
I want to just take a moment once again to thank the elected officials, representatives taking their time out to come and join us. This is truly an important occasion, and we certainly appreciate them. And at this moment, I'd like to reintroduce Mickey DiPaolo.
Thank you, Dr. Gordon, and thanks to our distinguished speakers today. And now I'd like to introduce our chaplain, Dr. Jerry A. Jones, for the benediction, to be followed by Ann Jeanette McFarland, as she plays Amazing Grace, as is tradition, on the bagpipes. Dr. Jones.
I would like to acknowledge today how stoic and how well Mickey has handled this meeting today. His mother passed away on Friday evening. I was at her bedside to pray for her on Thursday evening, and she passed away less than 24 hours after that. So, Mickey, I thank God for his help in giving you the strength to do your job and do it well here today. God bless you, Mickey. Let us pray. Dear God, the citizens of this great community of patriots have once again taken time together at this memorial to express our faith in you, our confidence in those that lead this great United States of America, and our city officials. We bind ourselves together today in a sense of community that is important to all of us. Thank you for the soul and for the spirit of patriotism that runs through the warp and woof of this nation and our community. Oh Lord, I pray that what has been said and done here has been pleasing and acceptable in your sight. It doesn't matter what war our people died fighting in. They are special heroes, fighting for our country's beliefs, even if they weren't really sure what they were fighting for. We honor their sacrifice, and we do here revive the memory of how great their sacrifice is. We will not forget. Amen.
Please be seated. Two years ago, exactly today, my father passed away. His name was Michael E. DiPaolo. Passed away on May 26, 2012. And he probably served his country during World War II. He served in the Pacific Theater for 23 months. Didn't see my sister until she was almost 2 years old. And as Pastor Jones said, my dear sweet mom, Henrietta, went to what she always called her heavenly home at age 91 on Friday evening at 6:30. The reason I bring this up is because my dad and I came home from World War II in Vietnam. My dad's brother came home from World War II. And my mom's two brothers, one came home from World War II, and the other brother came home from Korea. But today I want to remember the mothers and fathers and sons and daughters and husbands and wives and loved ones whose loved one did not come home. They paid the ultimate sacrifice. So as we remember our fallen heroes, please, please remember the loved ones that forever had a piece of their heart torn out, and pray for them. Thank you all for attending today's ceremony. I hope that you will stop by these memorials often to reflect on the cost of freedom. Don't forget at 3 p.m. today for the pause to remember. We don't want to forget that. So wherever you are at 3, if you're driving your car, pull over and observe a moment of silence at 3 p.m. A pause to remember of our fallen heroes. Thank you again for attending our ceremony today. And never, ever forget the brave men and women who have died for our country's freedoms. Please pray for peace. God bless you all.